Welcome to AP Euro for Winners.
Today, we are continuing with Unit 4 and talking about 18th century culture and arts.
The first thing that we're going to talk about is the Consumer Revolution, which takes place in the 1700s and is giving more power to consumers. And we're going to break down some different elements of this. First, we got to be aware of this term, the bourgeois, all right? They're going to be growing here. So the bourgeois is the middle class. But College Board in Europe really likes this word. It's a French word. We got to know this word. So we see the growth of the bourgeois, the growth of the middle class. And a lot of this growth is shaped by a new concern for more privacy. Okay, so little context about homes. Okay, so like if we go back in time before the 1700s, homes were usually just like one room and everyone would share the same room, everyone would sleep in the same bed. And then as we get into the 1700s, homes start to have more rooms because there's more money, and so that there's going to be more privacy being available. And so this concern of privacy is going to shape a lot of the culture and the life in the 1700s. An example of this is a room called the boudoir, which is a room for the wife of the house that was like apart from the husband and to entertain other women and stuff like that. But again, important to know that we have a more of a concern for privacy. All right. Also, because of this growing bourgeois in the middle class, we're going to see more people purchasing goods for their homes. These are things like linens, mirrors, porcelain dishes, okay, stuff like that. They're going to be purchasing to decorate their home. There's going to be a lot of new leisure activities that people take up, like going to concerts, going to taverns or coffee houses. And if we think back to our last couple lessons about the salons, right, all these ideas are going to help spread the Enlightenment. Okay. And then the last concept here in the consumer revolution is that people start to identify themselves about based on what they're buying, not just based on their religion. And so you can see this as an example on the right. This is a painting by Jean Vermeer called The Concert, where you can see there's the daughter is practicing piano. They have art in the room. This is a very middle class, a bourgeois living room. So you can kind of see how everybody is there.
All right, and part of culture is also the reading. So we're going to talk about the reading revolution. So we're going to see literacy rates grow, right? We saw this with the printing press, but there's more emphasis on the role of childhood and education, as we've again talked about. But with more books and other types of information becoming more popular, like newspapers, periodicals, books, pamphlets, encyclopedias, right? People have access to more content and a more varied content. So the natural sciences, literature, pop culture are going to expose Europeans to people outside of Europe, maybe ideas outside of Europe, and help increase challenges to accepted social norms. So people are looking at their life and not necessarily accepting everything they see. So with more ideas going around, there's also more censorship, right? Well, attempts at censorship as well, just knowing that there's both sides to this.
Like from the Catholic Church and the governments are going to try to censor works from people that disagree with them. We kind of saw that when we did the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, how people are trying to censor those scientists' ideas.
And that does decrease with time, but it takes a while.
All right, so the last kind of strand of culture we're going to talk about is the arts. This should be a little bit of review for you, okay, because this is going to be about Baroque art. But what we're going to see overall in the 1700s is a shift from religious themes and royal power. That's the focus of the art before. And so we're going to focus eventually more on the emphasis of private life. Okay. But we're going to start with Baroque art because that's kind of the context and it's the beginning of the 1700s. We've already talked about this, should be review, but Baroque art promotes the religious feeling. It's used by monarchs in the church to illustrate their power. So monarchs are going to embrace this Baroque art and use it to make them look powerful. For example, Bernini is a sculptor, and you can see this is a sculptor that he does a bust of Louis XIV. You can see how wonderful, how grand he looks. This is something a king would buy, put in their homes, put in Versailles, right, to show off. There's also a composer, Bach. I'm sure you've heard Johann Sebastian Bach, but a lot of his concerts he would put on, the church and the governments, the monarchies would put these concerts on to show, again, how powerful they are. So Baroque art, again, used for religion and kings to show their power. But as we get through the 1700s, towards the later 1700s, art is going to focus more on bourgeois society, right? It's going to focus more on the middle class. And this connects back to the consumer revolution, the fact that there's the rising middle class. Well, art doesn't just have to be made for the richest people in society anymore, or the church. It can be made for average people. And we're going to see some examples here in the next slide with a painter named Rembrandt. So Rembrandt is a Dutch painter. And I'm going to show you two paintings here, okay? So on the left, this one is called The Storm of the Sea of Galilee, I think is what it's called, okay? So what I want you to see, this is a biblical scene, okay? So there's still biblical scenes that they're painting, but it's a little bit more down to earth. It's not as grandiose as maybe we would see in the beginning of the Baroque period. But eventually, we're going to change to more everyday life type of art. So the painting on the right is one called Slaughtered Ox, and that's literally what it is. It's a slaughtered ox, right? So this is going to appeal a lot more to the average person, right? Like King Louis XIV is not hanging up this painting in Versailles, right? This is not something that he's going to put into his palace. But a common person might buy this if they thought it was interesting or unique, right? So this is not, we're going to start to see, again, art change to not just be about kings and the church, even though they're still going to be purchasing art. There's going to, a lot more art's going to be made for the average person.
All right, let's talk about another form of art, neoclassicism. And this is from 1750s to the mid 1800s, and this is focusing on Enlightenment and bourgeois values, like Mr. Johnson kind of talked about. So this is emphasizing simplicity and symmetry, right? If we see this example of the Pantheon in Paris over there, right? A very symmetrical building. They've got the pillars, looks very pretty. That's an example. It's also not the most extravagant building. It's a little bit more on the simple side. We also have literature, right? Connecting back to reading. We have Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, and that's the example right there. It's a guy shipwrecked on an island and learns to survive without any help from religion. So interesting.
So right, connecting back to the, like, not just about having to be about the church or about royal power, right? These books are inspiring to the middle class. That's what neoclassicism is a lot about.
And we have a play where a guy sells his soul to the devil to get secret knowledge, right? This is in Go with Faust. And it's pretty much showing that humans want meaning, right? They want an answer for things beyond just religion. And that's it. Not too bad, but make sure you're reading through the historical developments. Thank you for watching. Shout out to our AP Euro students. We'll see you all for the next video
on enlightened and other approaches to power. Until then, bye!